Welcome to the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. I interview leaders, experts and business professionals from around the world who are bringing leadership principles and know-how into the digitally driven 21st century workplace, with focus firmly on the how-to rather than the what. Each episode is in aid of a charity chosen by my guests, and since 2020, we've made donations to over 80 global and local causes. Hello and welcome back to the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, Jeremy Blain, and my returning guest, Tim Lupinacci, the CEO and Chair at Baker Donelson, which is one of the top 100 law firms in the US. A lifelong leadership student, Tim recently launched a non-profit called Everybody Leads and has followed this up with the same titled first book focused on empowering individuals in business, in communities and more. In fact, wherever teams gather, participate and contribute. Tim believes leadership isn't about titles. It's about choices, habits and courage. We discuss this in detail during our conversation with examples, tips, traps and more. As CEO of one of America's top law firms, Tim has led thousands through challenge and change. Now he's sharing the leadership lessons that helped him with everyone. As Daniel Pink comments, Everybody Leads is one of the best books on leadership I've read in a long while, the ideal pairing of timeless wisdom and timely strategies. There's no greater endorsement than that. This episode is in aid of the Hospitality Hub, Tim's charity of choice, and central to Tim's own Baker Care initiative at Baker Donelson. Tim, welcome back to the Rethink Leadership Podcast, and many congratulations for your book, Everybody Leads. It is fabulous. It is needed, and particularly around business and in communities, the fact that everybody has this within them and that we can tap that potential is so important in all of our lives today. So maybe you can put it in better words than me. Please reintroduce yourselves to those that haven't seen the first podcast with you, and why this new book of yours, Everybody Leads, is so important for leaders in the workplace and also in the communities.
Well, Jeremy, it is such a joy to be back with you. One of my favorite people in the whole world is you, and I just love all the work you do with Rethink, your podcast, but also the consulting and and diverse IT. So I'm just a raving fan of Jeremy Blain. So it's real special for me to be here. My whole journey of Everybody Leads began with when I was a young lawyer. I'm a lawyer here in the United States. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, and I lead Baker Donelson, which is one of the largest, 100 largest law firms in the United States, and I'm the CEO and chair. But my journey began when I was a young lawyer, and I had a boss speak into me leadership after I'd made a huge mistake, and we can unpack that story if we want to later. But he said that he yelled at me, and he said he really wanted to encourage me that I needed to step up and own my career and own my practice and to be a leader. And it was really the first time someone spoke leadership into me. And I didn't have a title, I didn't have a fancy office, I had no authority over anybody, right? But I thought, well, what does that mean to be a leader? And that led me on this journey to really try to understand that and to try to get better as a leader every day, including investing time and resources and building myself. But why I think this is so important is that I think everyone out there is a leader. And I think of leadership as influence and impact. And whether you have that corner office or you have authority or no authority, you are impacting and influencing others around you, as you do, Jeremy, but as everybody in their community, in their family, in nonprofits, in the workplace, in school. People look at you and how you show up, and we can influence people for the good. We can help, in some instances, change the trajectory of their life in just speaking into them and encouraging them along their way. And so if we're all leaders, my whole idea is, well, which I think we are, then we have to get better at it. And so the book is really built around some practical ways that we can try to each get better as a leader every day.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point that you made about your boss who was almost really driving you assertively down this
Right.
to help you discover for yourself what it meant to be a leader at your level at that point and grow within that role. And in business or in communities, we often need that. We often need somebody to step up and say, right, I'm going to help you feel empowered, embrace that empowerment and
Right.
do something about it. So I'm curious to know, going back to your book, in Everybody Leads, what are the ways that you emphasize this as a really important step for now C-suite leaders or leaders in the community to step up actually and empower others and give them the platform so that they can thrive?
Yeah, Jeremy, that's a great question. And I think that's exactly right because I think sometimes people mistakenly think, well, I'm now a leader. I've now got a title. People just need to do what I say. And certainly there have been leaders over history that probably have done that and maybe have succeeded for a little while. But I really fundamentally believe that you're going to have a more productive, more successful organization or team as you empower others, as you speak into them and let them accomplish some of their strategic objectives, their career ambitions. And so a part of that is, first of all, as a leader, listening, getting to know those people on your team. What are their career ambitions or their personal ambitions or professional ambitions? And it's probably going to be different, a little different for everyone on the team, but it involves spending some time building those relationships to know what they really want to accomplish. And then one of the ideas that is not new to me, but someone mentioned to me that I've really tried to embrace in my leadership is this idea of jump balls. This idea that when you have projects, when you have initiatives, it can be the smallest thing that needs to be done. You can empower someone on your team by giving the jump ball. Hey, can you get this project moved to the next step for me? Can you help lead this part of the meeting that is an area that you have an interest in, right? Because now you understand them and understand what they like to do. You may have someone else who doesn't like public speaking at all. Say, hey, here's a jump ball. Can you help me research this as I'm preparing for a meeting with a client? Or preparing for a meeting with a donor if you're a nonprofit. So it really is. It's a lot of everything I talk about in Everybody Leads is about intentionality. It's about really showing up, getting to know those people that are on your team, in your organization, understanding what drives them and what fuels their passion, and then looking for those jump ball opportunities to get them some work in that area, to give them some, if they want more high profile, you can do that. Or if they just want to be a bigger part of the leadership team, by giving them some initiatives. So those are just some ways that I've done that. And certainly encouragement is another thing we could unpack forever, but that encouragement is so valuable, not only for the recipient, but also for you as a leader to really live a life of trying to be encourager to those around you.
Yeah, there's quite a lot that came
Yeah.
out of that, and I'd just like to go to the very beginning of what you're saying, because there's a very important point here about it's not just empowering in your role or in your community, it's empowering others to own their own journey and step out of
Right.
the shadow or their own angst or whatever it is, and supporting and encouraging them to do so. And it takes, therefore, people and more enlightened leaders like yourselves to think, right, what's gonna really work here? It's the relationships that's going to work. It's being intentional. It's showing that I'm delivering my promise. It's listening to what is really going on down there. And I like your analogy of the jump balls. I think I might, I don't know, I think I might use the word springboard because I've not come across that one before. But
Yeah.
jump balls as an accelerator of all level of empowerment. What a great first step for leaders and managers tuning in. I love that. Would you agree? Have I summarized that okay?
No, you really did. I mean, and that's interesting. So some folks may not be fully familiar. Jump ball, the person who told me about it, it comes from basketball, where it used to be when two players had the ball in their hands and you couldn't, they were fighting over who had it. The ref would blow the whistle and they'd do a jump ball where they'd kind of just throw it up in the air and then you would go out and see who got it. The idea that, you may even use that on several members of your team who have said they wanted to lead, hey, who wants to handle this initiative? That's kind of the jump ball. But I love the springboard is even a better analogy, I think, to be very intentional. I love what you said, Jeremy, about ownership, because that was something even early in my career when my boss challenged me. I really was looking at my career as really transactional. I'd get a project, I would finish it, I would turn it in, and I'd go on to the next project and not really think about how it impacted the client or the company or the team I was on. It was just very focused. And I think sometimes all of us get in this idea that I'm just looking at my job very transactional. But if you do have ambitions, if you want that promotion, if you want to grow professionally in your skills, it's my view that if we're taking those actions to have a greater influence, greater impact on our colleagues, doing projects that no one's doing, or fixing things that people don't fix, or even picking up the paper that's in the hallway, and making the office space look better. Those are ways that you're going to influence and impact others that maybe not show up immediately, but over time you're going to become known as like an impact player, and you're going to have those opportunities to grow and thrive in bigger, enlarged areas of responsibility. So I completely agree with everything you said. And I fundamentally believe that's why I believe these concepts are for everybody, whether you have a title or not. It can use it to grow that influence with others.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that. It's embrace the little opportunities as much as the big opportunities, and it's how you show up, isn't it? Is that
You're right.
yeah, that's I'm always complaining at that cup's there or it's untidy in there. Well, do something about it, and hey ho, no, who knows? You can start small, right?
That's right. Well, and I don't know if we've talked about this before, Jeremy, but one of the greatest books, best books I've read in the last several years is Liz Wiseman has a book called Impact Players, and those of you who are leaders, those people on your team who just seem to get it. You don't even have to sometimes tell them, and they're thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, and they're not getting ahead of the team. They're not, but they're like trying to solve problems even though you didn't ask them, and it's not in their job description. And I think that's really what this is all about. It's how can we help the organization, the team move forward by making it better that we can do, and whether it's in our job description or not. And ultimately, it's going to lead us to be more fulfilled in what we're doing. And like I said, usually can lead to more opportunities. So I completely agree with you.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot now, Tim, because you're the author of Everybody Leads, and you're also the CEO of Baker Donelson, one of the top law firms in the US. So this is about putting our money where our mouth is as leaders. So what are the
Yeah.
strategies that you use to empower employees at all levels across the organization to recognize but also embrace their own leadership potential?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeremy. And it's interesting because a lot of the threads of what I do are certainly in the book Everybody Leads. But the first thing is, and I go back. This is kind of a Jim Collins, good to great idea. You got to make sure that you have the right people on the bus and the right leaders in the right seats on the bus. So I think at a ground level, in order to do the empowerment, you got to make sure that the right people, and I mean people that are qualified, that are skilled to do that particular role. In a law firm, we have a billing department working to making sure the invoices get out and work with clients to get them paid. We have a finance group. We have a marketing business development group, IT group. The first thing you have to do as a leader, you have to make sure that the people that are leading those different functions are the right people. They've got the skills and can lead forward. And then once you do have that in place, then it really is about talking into them, speaking into them that I want you to run this. I want you to feel like you've got autonomy, have authority to run this. If you have issues, I want to come back to me and let me know. But it's really, some of it is giving them opportunities to speak to colleagues in town hall meetings as the authority, as the expert on these particular topics. And then one thing we did here, because we were still having some challenges. I mean, it's probably different in different industries, but in law firms, there tended to be historically this idea that you either have a law degree or you don't have a law degree, and everyone who doesn't have a law degree is working for everyone who has a law degree, and you just have to do whatever they say, and that's just not. I mean, there probably are firms that do that and are fine, but that's not our culture, and we wanted everyone to realize, look, if we have a professional who are real experts in what they're doing, they not only have a seat at the table, they have a voice at the table. And so one small thing I did, I got batons made up. And in front of our whole leader group, I just said, I called them up one by one and said, I'm passing you the baton to go lead your area. And I want everyone to step up. Now, there's accountability. They've got goals. We've got annual goals. They've got to report quarterly. If they get missteps, we're talking about that. But it was just a visual way to do that. And then so that's some very specific stuff. But some of the things I think is just culturally to be open for feedback as a leader, to listen, to walk the halls. You don't have to be just the leader of an organization to feel like you're empowered. I want the people at our front desk to feel empowered. I want our legal support coordinators to feel empowered. So it's listening to them, understanding their challenges in the trenches and how we can solve that and get better, and then actually make changes as a result of the feedback. Can't do all the changes that everyone wants. So I know there's a lot of there to unpack, but again, it comes back to intentionality. about listening, about executing, and about really publicly empowering others to lead in their area and having their back, which is another thing I failed sometimes early in my journey. That I'd get somebody call a stakeholder call and say, oh, so and so with blah 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 did this, and I don't think that's fair. And early on, I probably was more apt to listen to them and say, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Let's do it a different way. When I needed to have that person's back, and that came again. I learned, and now we still may ultimately change whatever they had done, but I'm going to listen to my leader first, our leader on our team, to then approach it. So I know I'm rambling about a lot of different things, but hopefully some of that's helpful for your listeners.
That makes a lot of sense, and I like that the publicly empowering. I almost, for me, I'd change that word to loudly empowering.
Yeah.
It's visible, it's explicit, it's out there, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm just curious, just a quick come back on what you said there. So you're empowering your leaders, and your leaders are empowering others. So how do you, as a leadership team, if you like, catch people doing it right and provide sort of the recognition and support behind that?
Yeah, well, certainly, I think again, it comes back to the individual intentionally as a leader doing that to people on your team. Because if you catch people in the act of doing something really amazing and you express it loudly, I love that. I love that idea, Jeremy, to others, then hopefully they see some of that they will do the same, pass it along to their team, and they'll be more intentional about expressing gratitude in the moment. So I think some of it is just being intentional. I try to leave most interactions I have with colleagues at the firm of asking how can I help you, and then really trying to express gratitude, not just in a fake, inauthentic thanks for all you're doing, although you may do that too, but really if I see them doing something really well, to try to do that in the moment. I think that's certainly one way to do it. And then I think other ways are to whatever works for you, but even like handwritten thank you notes for something specific they did. And trying to get those around. And again, if we do all these things every day, we have no time to lead the organization. So I'm saying you got to balance it. But even walking the halls, those 2-minute interactions with colleagues, spending 10 seconds or 15 seconds thanking them or encouraging them something great they did that you saw, that pays a lot of dividends. And then hopefully it infuses the whole culture of the firm as you do that from top down, or it can be from bottom up. What I think the book I talk about, one of our greatest leaders is someone who's a receptionist in one of our offices, and she doesn't have a big fancy title. Her responsibilities are not a whole lot other than just there, but she infuses that office with her personality and her gratitude and her the way she shows up every day. So no matter where you are, we can help do that.
Sounds amazing. And I also like your point around, if you see it, you say it, you thank people. And
Yeah.
though it may be little things like that though, but they can make such a difference when people have been in an organization where leaders don't thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, no, and it's interesting. I have a concept in the book about how we each have a leadership aroma, and I know I'm not talking about you went and worked out and maybe you need to go get a shower. I'm talking about how we show up every day, and it literally is those interactions as you go through the day. It really comes from a former professor there in London at the London School of Economics who talked. It was from, I think, Calcutta. And he said that the only time he got off from school from teaching was to go to visit his family back in Calcutta was in the summer, and it was 105 degrees and 100% humidity, and you had no energy. You were lethargic. You didn't want to be around anyone. You just wanted to lie around and have no energy. He contrasted that with the time he got to teach in France near Fontainebleau Forest, and he said in the springtime, and he said Fontainebleau Forest in the spring is, there's a spring in your step as you walk through the forest, and you have all this energy and passion, and you're just excited. And I kind of take that. That was a real challenge to me about how am I showing up. Even as you said, it's the moments as I walk to go get a cup of water. I can walk with my head down, thinking about the dozen things I have to do, walk past 6 colleagues and not even look up or have a scowl on my face because I'm thinking of something I have to deal with, or I can interact. And again, this isn't utopia that I go down the hall giving everyone high fives and hey, I love you, you're doing great. But it is a way how I show up every day, and people look at how we each show up every day. So it's in those small moments that can really make huge differences.
And I've been privileged enough to witnessed this firsthand when I've been working with you in your organizations in the US and so on. And I see how you and your leadership team operate. And this is real. This works. This is how you do things. And it's how you've captured all of those and distilled those moments in the book, which I like the most, that will help others tuning in. And I'm also curious, therefore, Tim, in a structured sort of organization, if you like Baker Donelson, this is the culture that you've created. How do you do that in some of the other areas that you mentioned, in communities, in schools, in areas that are of, if you like, um, poverty or never had opportunities like this? Is it a similar approach, or do you have to do something different?
No, I think it is. I mean, because really at the core of it all, it comes down to relationships, I think. And so no matter where you are, no matter what privilege you've had or not, or you've come from really challenging situations, you can invest in yourself, in trying to grow your own influence, grow your own professional development. And it's really, the world now is such that we have access to all kinds of great leadership content, podcasts like this, YouTube videos, of really just beginning this concept of trying to think about how can I learn and get better. You don't have to be in a big corporate setting, but trying to become a better leader, and then be intentional about those relationships. An example of how we kind of even show up. We have something called Baker Cares, where we partner in our communities with different organizations who are trying to help eradicate homelessness. And they're doing incredible work. Well, when we have a leadership meeting in a particular office, we try to go roll up our sleeves and work with that organization to walk alongside them, and that really sets the stage of some things that are really matter about how we can help others, how we can encourage them along their journey, and those who have been maybe less fortunate for whatever reason, and then try to come alongside and help them, just to have some inspiration that they can accomplish things, to see that they are a leader even if they are struggling still to get into that first job situation. So I think it is built around intentionality of it comes back to relationships, and really trying to understand the heartbeat of the person. So it could be in community, in school, in an underprivileged area, and really just speak into them, encourage them. And again, there's some stuff in the book that talks about how a couple words can often change a person's trajectory just by speaking positivity into them. There's a reference in the book to an author who was in New Orleans, who's passed away now, that says, in every interaction, we either give life or we drain it by the words we use, and talking about the power of words. And so no matter where somebody's been on their journey to this point, fortunate, unfortunate, tragedy, we can help them from today to go forward. Certainly maybe if we can provide resources or whatever, but it's also by just encouraging and speaking into them. So,
Yeah, well said, Tim. And you embody the movement for many leaders today who are struggling to make that move from know-it-all leaders to learn-it-all leaders.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you are a student of leadership as well as a thought leader in the space. And so, if I take you back to your book and the writing of your book, what are your favorite examples that you have that you now have in the book, and what are the new lessons you've learned through writing it, and what do you now embody?
Yeah, what a great question. Well, I definitely love the idea of leadership aroma, but one of my favorite parts of the book is around, and we kind of talked about encouragement and the importance of encouragement. And I've got this story that kind of highlights what we talked about how it's really those can just be those short moments that really can change and impact people. But I have a great nephew who's now about 9 or 10 years old. But when he was 5, he wanted me to play a game with him when I was over his house, and he came and had me get down on my knees in one end of their game room, and he ran down to the other end of the room, and he got in his toy box and he was grabbing some stuff, and then he popped up and he had put a cape on his neck, like a Superman cape. And then he kind of balled up and said, "Super David," his name's David, "Super David." And he came running at me as fast as his little legs could carry him. And I'm sitting on my knees wondering what he's going to do. And he got a few feet from me and he jumped in the air towards me, like thinking he was going to fly. And I realized quickly I needed to catch this young boy. So I caught him and put him down on his feet. And then he said, again. And he had this great joy on his face, and he ran to the other end, and he came back down, and Super David. And over time that became the thing that we did when I went to his house. And somewhere in there he then started calling me Super Tim. And so then every time I see him, even to this day, he'll see me and he'll yell Super Tim, and he'll come and run and give me a hug. And if I could have had the most horrible, terrible, no good, bad day at the office, not that we have those at Baker Donelson, but occasionally, right? But when David comes and says Super Tim, 2 words, I feel like I'm on top of the world and I can conquer that next challenge. And so I love that story because it really reminded me that I don't have to block off, 90 minutes every day to express gratitude to people. Now, there's times I want to do that. If I want to write to every member of our leadership team, I may plan it, but it's in those specific minutes of the day that you can speak into somebody. There's another story about someone who had graduated college, didn't even know what he wanted to do, and he was cutting the lawn of a law firm to earn some money. It was a sole practitioner, like the house that the guy worked legal work in. And he gave him a project to do, and he did it to earn some extra money, just edited it. And the lawyer said, "Hey, I think you might have a career as a lawyer." He'd never thought about that. And that one sentence led him to now where he's a general counsel of a very large company. So those are some of my favorite stories because they speak into me about how I need to be encouragement. And you did say, Jeremy, as you said, where I'm learning something every day, I'm making mistakes every day, and then that's helping me learn and get better. But one of the things that I'm really focused in on now is this. It's an old. I read this. It's an old ancient Roman term, and I don't speak Italian, even though my name's Italian. But it's a word called anteambulo, which meant one who clears the path. And I think about that, like for all of us, for me as a leader, if I can think and walk through my day as being someone who can help clear the path so that someone else can get to their career ambitions to achieve success, then I've done a really, powerful part of the day. I've really had a successful day if I can help clear the path for others. So that's something that's maybe new, that's not quite in the book, but it's something that this all comes in this area of encouragement to others.
Yeah, and alongside a key word that's come out of this intentionality,
Mm,
I'd almost add now humanity.
mm,
It's
hmm
getting to the very human heart of yourself and those that you're working with or those that you're supporting and so on, to find that special mix and that special ingredient between you,
Yeah.
whereby this magic can happen, right?
Uh, totally agree. And I mean, look, I mean, you see it too. The world is increasingly challenging. The world is increasingly can be divisive. The world can be stressful. And it just seems like it's amped up. We see it in our organization about individuals struggling with mental health and wellness. It does all come back to humanity and the human. And making sure that we're helping our colleagues on our team, helping ourselves first to make sure we're taking care of ourselves in some of these areas as a human to show up our best self, but then helping others. So we've really tried to ramp up our efforts around mental health and wellness as well, because that's so important to that, and it's really at the core of who we are as humans. Because we got to take care of ourselves first before we're serving clients, before we're impacting the community and others. Because if we're not, then we're going to miss some steps. So I encourage to folks that are listening to make sure you're looking in the mirror a little bit this like I do. I talk to a therapist every 6 or 7 weeks it's a safe space for me to unpack some things where maybe I'm struggling with something, or I noticed I started showing up maybe with a little bit more irritability, and some of it just could be I'm not getting enough sleep or something, but some of it could be something that I need to really work through. So I completely agree, Jeremy. And then I think it's interesting because then you hear business leaders and say, well, but that all humanity stuff doesn't help me make profits, right? Doesn't help the bottom line. But I'm convinced it does, because then if we're taking care of ourselves and we're taking care of our colleagues, then you can be much more successful as a team and organization. It all ties together to ultimately to hit more profits and more impact in the marketplace for sure.
Right. It's all point growth.
Yeah.
Everybody's engaged, everybody's collaborating together. It feels that way from a cultural perspective, so it becomes high impact, high performance. It absolutely does relate to the bottom line. And human capital is on the balance sheet. So if that
Right.
human capital is not engaged, not doing something, then the value of your business is going to go down. If it is and it's performing and growing, wow, that's a big
Right.
change.
Absolutely. And we talk about when we're in the middle of a strategic vision, and it's really just built on three pillars. And frankly, it's two, because if you do the first two, the third one, and one is we got to serve our clients with excellence. In our industry, we need to know their industry, we need to know their business and be proactive with strategic advice. And so that involves, again, relationships, knowing the person, knowing that business's priorities, but that's the client piece of it. But then equally important is our people. We have to have our people make sure that they're engaged, that they see the purpose of what we're doing. We have to pour into them through our, we call it Baker Well, mental health wellness. We're giving them a pathway to success. And then the third plank is just the firm. But if we're taking care of our clients and serving our clients with excellence, if we're taking care of our people, the whole person, skill building is a part of that too, then the firm's going to be successful. And it has been. We've had 5 record years of performance on a lot of different categories, not just financial, when we just focused on those two primary things. So it does work. It's worked for us. And I think, and again, it comes back, I know this is all kind of full circle. It comes back to those daily intentional actions that compound over time to build momentum and motivation.
So, Super Tim, as I'll now call you. And so next time I see you, Tim, I will be running towards you and saying, Super Jeremy, and then I will jump and I'll be expected to be caught. Okay. So
I will
just so
catch
you
you.
know.
I've got your back. I've got you, man. I'll
Yeah,
do
I
it.
know. Thank you. Anyway, I have to admit, I've got the book fairly recently. I'm about a quarter of the way through, and something that resonated with me was where you highlighted the role of empowerment in fostering a culture of energy and collaboration. I was nodding furiously to this.
Yeah.
So in your words or from your perspective, what are the tangible benefits of getting that right, but the risks of approaching that in the wrong way?
Yeah. So no, so certainly collaboration is something that our firm is spread out over like 23 offices over 13 states. And so collaboration is almost something we have to become a superpower at because we're not all in one location. What we've tried to implement several things to try to build that energy around that is certainly getting people together in person. Even though we're spread out, we try to do that with different leadership groups. We try to do a retreat with all of our attorneys every year to try to make sure that we're pouring into them, having some time where they can have some fun. So there's some of it is just being intentional about getting people together. We try to work into using the research that's out there. And again, every industry is going to be a little different, but I suspect the core concept is right, that the data is clear that when you collaborate with others across different geographies or different practices, you can grow bigger external client relationships because now you become stickier because now you're doing work in more than one line of business for them. And I think that translates to any business. And all the data shows that if you are working with colleagues across geographies, practices, maybe it's your business units, that's going to help you become more valued to that client, that customer. So those are some things that, and then we, of course, in our system, we have to reward that. So we have to build into the compensation system, encouraging people to collaborate. So there's some things we try to do about that. But you're exactly right, Jeremy. There are some risks to that. In that you can bring in a colleague to help you, and then they don't quite perform up to your level of expectation, and then you have to address that, right? Because you know exactly how you want your client wants to handle stuff, but then someone else may not do that. So that just involves a lot of helping empower people to know how to have those tough discussions. How can we have a base level of what client expectations of each other? We've built in something that we're working on called Baker Way. As I said, everything here starts with Baker because we're Baker Donelson, but Baker Way, or what we're committing to each other as client service expectations and expectations to our colleagues. So that's a way to try to address the challenges that sometimes people may not show up the best way, that like the way you show up. So those are some things that we try to build energy. There's a discussion in the book that goes back to Churchill and his idea of dinner table diplomacy. I love getting leaders around the dinner table together because that's where you get to build those relationships, understand the more human side of people, talking about their kids, their family, their vacations. Churchill did it with a lot of world leaders and a lot of brandy and cigars, which may or may not be part of the dinner table diplomacy I do. Probably not the good cigars, but But those are just some real key ways, again, intentional ways to build relationships to then help build that collaboration and people trust each other with authenticity.
Yeah, and you reinforce so many of the points that you've made throughout this explanation of everybody leads, but how deeply and closely it's connected to your DNA, Tim, and how
Right.
others we need to almost have a more sophisticated leadership aroma, I think was the
Yeah.
terminology to
Yeah.
think about, well, what makes me a leader today that has intentionality, that brings back that humanity, that where I can find the jump balls to empower others and then encourage and support them, where we then all learn and grow together. We have very open communications, that feedback loop, that listening to each other. And that's a two-way street, of course, becomes
Right.
so important. Um, all make complete sense to me. So if you were to leave those today tuning in with two or three key messages, Tim, what might they be?
Yeah, I totally agree with the way you've summarized that, Jeremy. And so I would say, one, again, take care of yourself because I think as we each take care of ourself, we build in resilience into our life. We build in reflection time, staring out the window time to think and process. That would certainly be one. I mean, the overarching message, and hopefully there's some people here on the listening that you are a leader. I want you to believe and have confidence that you are influencing others around you. And I'm also confident, want to speak into you, that if you start being intentional about these daily actions, that you can grow that influence and have a greater impact on those around you. And it could lead to bigger promotions, bigger responsibilities. If that's part of what you want, it could just lead to more fulfillment because now you feel bigger part of a team as you're influencing and having more insight and taking on more of those jump balls. And then again, I think that this idea of how we show up every day really matters. And look, we all have bad days. We wake up where, the success of your day is just that you're going to get out of bed and show up at work and just kind of get through it, right? I mean, there's sometimes we just have that. But the more we can think about how we walk through each day, and that we can really influence the trajectory of someone's life or their career. That's a lot of responsibility that we each have as humans, and we can really make a difference in others' lives. It was interesting. We had our launch of the book yesterday, and I talked about that story about people that Super David, encouraged me with just a few short words, and how my boss encouraged me early on about step up as a leader. And I had two different people come up to me at the reception afterwards and say, "I just want to let you know, I've never told you this before, but 7 years ago, you mentioned to me that you thought that I could be a leader, and now and they literally are one of our best leaders in the firm, and I don't even remember it. I don't remember that interaction, and it was just something around the table, but and that's not a Tim, like that's not, oh, Tim's so powerful. It's just that was just the power of words, and everybody that's listening today can have that kind of influence on someone's life if we're showing up with intentionality and how we lead every day.
Yeah, and that's another important point, that power of words, for sure. That's a
Yeah,
big message in this. Choose your words wisely and tailor your words, for sure.
yeah.
Well, Tim, it's been a joy to host you again. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm sure those tuning in are eager to learn where they can get a copy of Everybody Leads and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly on all the Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, and Facebook. The book Everybody Leads is on Amazon. There'll be a hard copy, and there's an ebook. And I'm at bakerdonelson.com, and I love talking about leadership. I love just helping you in your journey. If there's anything I can do, so please feel free to reach out through LinkedIn. And Jeremy, I'm just such a huge fan of you, and you've had such a huge impact on not only me but our firm. So thank you for your insights, your wisdom, your leadership, and how you show up to help us be a better firm.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. But for today, I have to say I've learned a lot as well. I'm fully behind the concepts within your book, as you know. I'm constantly learning every day, but the other thing is I've really enjoyed the conversation that we've had. So, Tim Lupinacci, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Jeremy. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. Please like, comment and support us on your favourite platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.